distract you from your assignment. Don't let your family get you out of your prophetic assignment. Listen, they're standing outside. You might not be assigned to your family, but don't let them distract you and cause you to lose focus from your prophetic assignment. Jesus did not get distracted. It was the multitude that got distracted. Yeah. And they entered, excuse me, Jesus, stop teaching Isaiah 61. We got a question. We got something to tell you. Your family's outside and they're seeking you. I'm surprised Jesus said, well, how come they're not in here?
Yeah.
If they were really seeking me, how come they're not in here? In other words, I want y'all to catch this. It seems like Mary, full of grace, and the half-brothers of Jesus, it seemed like they wanted Jesus to come outside. See, your family will always try to get you to come outside of God's will.
Yeah.
You got to watch out for certain family members that don't want you to remain in the kingdom, but trying to get you out of the kingdom. And so what Jesus said in verse 33, but he answered them saying, who is my mother? Wait a minute. This is the Immaculate Mary, right? Immaculate Conception. This is the Mary, and of course, I say this all the time. We are called to respect her, but it seemed like Jesus said, who is my mother? Or my brothers? And he looked around, periblepo. He looked and discerned around the audience, and he said here in a circle at those who said about him, he says, here are my mother and my brothers. Here are my mother and my brothers, mother singular. And notice what he says, brothers plural. Here are my mother and my brothers. Because the church is a type of mother. The church is a type of mother. Prophets are called to prophesy in the mother.
Yeah.
The brothers come from the womb of the mother. Here are my mother and my brothers. So here is a principle. Jesus did not allow his family to make him lose focus off of his assignment. He refused to get familiar with his family in his prophetic assignment. So, Deacon Antonio, when you think about that, prophets should not let their family cause them to be distracted, or they should not get so familiar with their family where they're not correcting or prophesying to them. What comes to your mind?
What comes to my mind is that Jesus is clearly showing a distinction between your spiritual family and your natural family. And sometimes your natural family can cause you to stray from God's will if you're using them as sort of like idols, like you're moving everywhere that they want you to go, or you're doing everything that they think you should be doing instead of you being attentive to the people that God has placed you over as a prophet and listening to what God is saying and then communicating those things to them. I think it's important that prophets don't become familiar with their families and see and begin to weight their words and their wants and needs against the wants and needs of the people that God has assigned them to.
Very, very powerful. Elder Mike, what you want to say about this whole principle?
I think the first thing that came to my mind too is that prophets must understand that their first, well, you know, you always hear this, your first ministry is your home, but it seems from the scripture it's saying that really your first ministry is your ministry to whatever it is that God has given to you first. Because if you don't do that first, how can you even be good to your family? So I think as a prophet that the first thing you must focus on is the ministry and whatever it is that God has called you to, and don't allow, you know, your family, what they're going through, what they say, affect what God is telling you to do or the assignment that God is telling you to do. So I think that the main thing I get out of it at the end of the day is that your main focus should be the ministry that God has called you to and whatever he instructs you to do, and anything outside of that you don't focus on. You only focus on those who are attached to what it is that God has called you to do. Those who support that is who you connect to. Everybody outside of that, you just don't worry about it.
Yes and yes. So what you're saying, Prophet Mike, that your supporters, your destiny helpers, are your true family.
That seems like what it's saying.
It seems like Jesus is saying in Mark chapter 3, verse 31 to 34, his true family was those who were his destiny helpers, those who were listening and doing the will of the Father. That's the true family that belongs to Jesus. Those who do the will of the Father, those who support the kingdom, is the true family of Jesus. Now, this is very deep because Jesus says that I'm not going to identify my biological family as my family. I'm not going to get familiar with them to the point where they cause me to come outside of God's kingdom. I'm going to look at the ones who are in the kingdom, and I'm going to identify them as my family. Now, this is very key. That tells me, prophets, that when God brings you into prophetic assignment that you're called to walk in, you cannot allow familiarity to not let you speak the word of God. You cannot allow familiarity with your family to keep you from prophesying to them, to keep you from holding them accountable to the kingdom.